Hey, good afternoon. I know the day says Tuesday. It's always a good day when it says that we are part of it. So we're going to be open line until 1 p.m. We're going to tell you the numbers to call. 1-800-534 is the Flow toll-free number. You have other options, so give us a shout and share your thoughts. Stay tuned for Talk Today. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for joining us. No, it's not my attempt to put on a different voice. It's just the way it is. Hey, welcome. Rise and shine. And they say before the sun comes up, Mom always says, don't let the sun beat you to bed. Some of us could probably spend a little more time in bed, but that's just a song that we probably heard. Who would have sung that song, Miss Susan? Who would have sung that song? I think it might have been the Barry White song. It could be him. No, he didn't. But it was a song he would have sung. 949-8037, 949-6990. One more number, 949-8037. How about another one? 925-3261. All good numbers to call and put them in. The last one, the cell, 925-3261 is our WhatsApp number. You can call it. And if we recognize your number, we may say, we don't talk to you, we won't answer it. No, that's not kidding. But you wouldn't know unless you call. So give us a shout. We want to hear from you. We want you to appreciate the importance of the democracy. I say that to say that I've been once again given the opportunity to, I say it now and let's see if it changes between the end of the program. No, to host For the Record again in the morning. And in the morning, Mr. Morales-Carvallho will join us. And we've got a chance to talk about, that idea of the freedoms that we enjoy in our democracy and the importance, of sometimes conflict with an attempt to seek resolution, and maybe depending on the side of history or the seat in the class in which you occupy, you may not always appreciate what is being presented. But our freedoms and liberties, our rights and our responsibilities oftentimes are not championed, and sometimes they are often taken for granted, and maybe only when they're threatened that we see the importance. And they may be subtle. They may be a simple amendment in your democracy by your government saying, well, you can no longer visit this place or assemble in this way, or you may not be allowed to do this thing at this time. Think about it. We have to legally operate by the laws to be compliant. We have to, if we are operating within the laws, get requisite license to do certain things. You want to have a business to sell something, you apply and pay the requisite fee if there's a fee charge, and you file the appropriate documentation and you're granted a license. Well, let's say it's a license to sell intoxicating liquor. They may come with conditions. If it's a vessel, perhaps not until the vessel is beyond a certain distance from shore, not after or before a certain hour. The sale of alcohol may be, presented in a way that is restricted to people of a certain age and above. It may even, as some jurisdictions have put in place a liability on you as the bartender, the server, the purveyor of alcohol, not to sell or even give it to someone that you know or ought, as they say, reasonable to know that that person is now intoxicated. Now, you haven't administered a breathalyzer or a blood test, but perhaps you can look and say, well, that person looks really, drunk. And if you give that person another drink, are you responsible? And I should have to ask, following the discussion earlier, individuals have weighed in that similar to other jurisdictions, should we also do the same in Cayman? Pass a law that says if you serve alcohol, just like you would to a minor, you would be, committing an offense. Should it also be that if you serve it to someone who's already intoxicated and that person ends up in an accident or does something else, that there's a level of culpability, you're liable as well for that person's intoxicated state. Now, some would say, yep, that's how it should be. Others would say, well, why not? Will an adult be held accountable for the actions of the adult, even the intoxicated adult? Now, many would share that they've seen, witnessed, or even themselves, in a very embarrassed manner, have to admit that after they've had a few drinks, they are not necessarily the best people. You can't reason with them. And if you try to say, listen, okay, we've had enough, we're not going to drink anymore, they may become aggressive and belligerent. Others may be insistent and indignant, adamant that they can still function, and risk times good friendships because you don't want to offend the person, and the person goes and something unspeakable occurs and you feel guilty. Well, let's weigh in on that, and it may be not the most pressing of discussions, but it is one that I was asked to consider and share with the public. See if there's an attraction. Do you think that that is an appropriate piece of legislation to put on our books? Would it cause more and more people to have to excuse to say, well, I'm not accepting or not responsible for my behavior? Now, many of us come from a space where, let me put it this way, your daughter might say to you, if you're old enough to give a lick, you should be old enough to take one. Now, you don't need to interpret that in this literal sense. That means that you have to accept responsibility for your actions. And how many of us complain about a nanny state, the big brother, when it comes to the monitoring of our actions, but by the same token, we're unwilling to accept responsibility that in the absence, for instance, of a sign where it would be you're at, the age of, say, a jagged outcropping, and there's no sign saying, beware of falling rocks, steep, fall ahead, and you're peering over the edge and you fall. Wouldn't you think that that would be obvious that at that age? Some would say, well, no, the government, the landowner should have put not only up signs, but, a barricade, and should have, had people guarding the area to stop people from coming to the edge, and as much as they may want to enjoy the view, because, it could be dangerous. Now, some would say, well, what if it's a child and the like, and you might accept that there should be some level of responsibility, but the adult who seen a very sheer drop, very sharp, steep fall, and goes to the edge, slips, or even jumps, should there be, a level of responsibility on the part of the government or the landowner because there was no, railing, fencing, posted person to prevent people from peering over the precipice? Or should that person who did and suffered an injury or worse be solely responsible? Maybe that's similar to the notion of, the proprietor of a licensed premises being responsible for continuous serving an already intoxicated person more alcohol. Well, that amongst many things we can talk about, and I certainly want to ask us to continue to maybe weigh in on some of the other issues, not just the pressing issues relative to the implications that are happening in our society relative to seemingly people's pressing ability to meet ends at the end of the month, to pay their bills, and they fear that not only will they become unemployed, but even their employment and the income therefrom will be insufficient to meet their obligations. And their concerns are some relative to being able to pay their rents or their loans. I don't say this to offend, but I can't say their mortgages, because I think we're increasingly hearing from people much more knowledgeable that what we have, but for probably what exists at the credit union, not mortgages, being that a mortgage in other jurisdictions is that thing which is defined that there is a set payment over a defined period. What we have is, as we're told, a demand loan. It may be a 10, 15, 20, 30 year commitment that your loan payments are to sort of be spread over, but it may fluctuate depending on interest rates. Now, is there an answer? Has the answer evaded us because there hasn't been sufficient political and or societal will? Is it the lack of what obtains in that market that has put us at an disadvantage when we're negotiating? Is it that we're blind and trusting, naive? Is it that we, as some of age, just see the profit potential and quickly ascribe to that at the expense of people's lives and livelihoods and quality and standard of living? Well, you weigh in and share your thoughts with us. 949-8037, 949-6990, or toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. And then you can WhatsApp us. Give us a call if you want. 925-3261. We'll pause and take our first break. When we come back, we'll invite you to be part of a discussion. We're going to look at a couple of little notes to see if they've been released in order to share with the public on other issues. But we'll know when we return because we're going to hear from you. Stay tuned for Talk Today. Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. It is Open Line 949-8037, 949-6990. Toll free with the kind compliments of Flow 1-800-534-8255, or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. For many, and they can never have too many numbers like their passwords. Some only want one. Well, we give you options. We know many are not Flow subscribers and have a challenge calling in 800 number, so you have the other options. Hopefully many will be able to call the WhatsApp number 925-3261. it's important to engage as much as possible in meaningful public discourse. And yesterday's discussion, thanks again to Mario Rankin for coming in and sitting in, through him, just his presence, maybe encourage others to feel courageous enough to share their thoughts. Sometimes the things that we say become very insightful in that it causes other people to not just be introspective, but to actually, in an informed, considerate perspective, question, query, try to not listen more intently and understand, but be able to explain. And the key, I think, oftentimes is effective, timely communication. So with where we are and with all that is happening, to what extent do we see the Cayman in the next 6 months being in anything different from what it is now? What about 6 years? What about 60 years? And with the greatest of respect, many of us, we're really not even thinking about 6 weeks ahead, because we are just trying to keep our heads above water, as they say. And there are perhaps those who, because of their disposition, their instruction and example, believe that you make provision. You will sacrifice now, save for the rainy day, and all of the things that your parents may have taught you, may have been instructed in school, the examples you saw. You delayed gratification with the expectation that it would make sense in your golden years, or that when you get to this particular stage, you would be able to do more of the things that you want to. Not just prayerfully that you have the health, but you also have the financial wealth. And then there are those who are looking and are saying, well, does it really make sense? Once it was said, here today, gone tomorrow, people are faring, it's no longer that. But what about future generations? And are we being good stewards, as we've been called? How many of us are being able to enjoy now as we are contributing? We're certainly taking some, but we're not taking more than we're given. And how many are, if I might use the phrase, and if you haven't heard it before, if you haven't heard it in a long time, or if you don't think it's appropriate, let me know. How many of us are grabalicious? What do you think about that, Miss Susan? Is that a appropriate word? A bit grabalicious? We are trying to take, she nods and say, yeah, haven't heard that in a while. And it's not to infuse any particular parlance or vernacular colloquialisms or anything. It's about trying to appreciate that the more differences that exist, in our lives that are magnified, the more it should remind us to look for the commonalities amongst us. And to our core, we're all probably at one point in time, at least before the last 3 years emerged, more alike biologically. Now some would say, well, we may have been altered. Who knows how and what? And that in itself could be something that inflames people. But is it meaningful discourse, the opportunity to listen and try to reason with people with a very contrary view from yours? It may convince you and cement your own, perspective, or it may be so insightful that you now recognize that you've come to a greater illumination. Well, that, my friend, you see, is where learning and knowledge takes place. So 949-8037, 949-6990. Toll free with the compliments of Flo at 1-800-534-8255. Let's take this call. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sterling. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Hey, thank you for playing along, man.
even to us, you're confusing now.
hey, isn't it interesting? I mean, I appreciate the bit of levity you bring into,
Yeah, because this morning I get up and I turn on the phone to look at the internet side of it. And I say, oh, today Tuesday. I was taking you on this morning, so.
Yeah, man. But it's amazing, huh?
That's true.
We can become conditioned so quickly, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, because when we get used to something, we kind of spoil ourselves with it, so we got to be careful sometimes.
Boy, it's thank you for saying that, because you don't realize how, could I use the word, not just conditioned, right, but maybe even addicted.
Addicted, that's a good word. That's a good word.
Yeah, man. And
that's a good.
I don't want to put you off too, but what about association, right? You ever notice that? You don't want something until you're doing something else, right? Those two go hand in hand.
Well, that association, we kind of getting used to that morning thing now, so you better try to keep that up, or your house it in the morning with those you seeing me.
Well, you know what? I'll reach out to him, and he has in the past, and maybe he might say, you want to join me. I would be honored to sit next to him. So let me see if that can transpire.
Yeah, but anything to keep a smile on our face. So
boy, a smile on your face and a beat in the heart.
I hear you, man. Everything good?
Listen, even if it wasn't, I would say it is, because I am mindful to call those things that aren't as if they were. Speak it into being.
Never grumble, never complain, my friend. Never grumble, never complain.
Amen, brother.
Yeah, I just want to mention something that I was sitting down this morning thinking about, because I was thinking about my daughter that, they gave her a little, I would say, time job or time schedule job. I don't know if that's a good title to put to it, but it's just a couple of months of work that the government give her for the time being, being a graduate coming out of school. And I was sitting thinking about just my daughter, and imagine the hundreds that in the same position that they don't even have a position for them children to work in. Government should have implemented into the system spaces in all government departments, not some, that when these children leave our schools, that they have the place to go and experience firsthand different jobs. That is a must. It's not about no if or no but. I up to now I struggle to understand why government do not implement that type of system, and why is not those that are into the system that have been there for numerous amount of years are still under this thing called work link or job experience or whatever they call it. It's one other term, and it slipped my mind. I don't remember what they call it, but anyway, it's a time given the part they offer them work, and they can go from department to department.
It's like an internship, like?
Intern, that's the word. And a lot of them are still under an internship and not full-time working for government. And that should not be. And we go back to the same thing again, and it will pile up over and over and over, that they do not put our children in this country first. Because every time 100 that graduate in Grand Cayman, I'm quite sure it's around that figure. Cayman Brac sometimes is in the 50s and the 40s and down in the high 30s that graduate every year. And they have nowhere to turn to rely on work. And they spend all their life 4 or 5 years before the parents can afford to send them off to college. And most of the time the kids are just sitting down. If they get one little work in a store or something just to get experience of work, they get that. But it should not be where the parents have to have these go around these stores looking little in job for these children. The government, they have to put in place something for our kids.
What do you think the government could do? I want, if it's okay with you, maybe ask another question and maybe engage a little further. But what could the government do?
What the government needs to do, Sterling, they need to stop waiting till that final year for election to start saying this is what they offer, this is what they offer. We have a situation year after year after year. We don't have a situation every 3 years, And that's the only time the government notices the problems in the country to solve problems. It's only every 3 years, and you know what our 3 years represent? Votes. Look in votes. It shouldn't be. We have to solve the issue every time that system, that school has a graduation class closing out in a July, August, or September, whenever they do it now, because of they had changes due to COVID, they need to have systems open and things implemented that is automatically that the choosing of the schools have the choices in these government departments, and even air traffic is not under government. That is implemented. That should be implemented into that same
Right.
whatever.
When you just for clarity, sorry, when you reference air traffic you mean that the people working as air traffic controllers?
They can work on whichever sector they put them in, because they can put them under the I forget what they call that side of the
fire service.
All the checks of the winds and the rains.
What, the meteorological office?
Yeah.
The Met Office? Okay.
Yeah. They have, and I know that department been doing that.
Right.
I know they've been doing it, and it hurts to know that our system is not there to help the children. The parents has to go to these departments of government and say, "Can my child get work here?"
Right.
That
so
should not be.
I hear your concerns. So let me then ask, because first off, drawing an inference from what you shared and making an analogy that some private sector companies have employed, maybe even in this country, but certainly in others. So for their new recruits, they put them through what some companies used to call a management trainee program. So they hired, usually it's someone out of university or some sort of tertiary education. They'll bring them in and they'll run them through many departments. So let's say it's a bank, for instance, just to make that one probably a little bit easier. And they would take them through every section, from how the files are kept, how the tellers interact with the customers, to the reconciliations at the end of the day, to the postings, to how wire transfers and the like are done. They may move on through the investment and trust side. The banks have that, all sorts of things, trying to acquaint that potential employees or future with as much of an insight into the operations of that organization. And who knows, the person might be one day the head of the organization, right? But to get an appreciation, I believe other entities here may do something similar. But with that in mind, could we also question whether, as some have shared, and I just looked at a WhatsApp message again during a break to figure out how to broach it. So this may be up to some have been questioning more publicly and more often whether those that are employed by a government within its core government and within certain areas in government, that employment should only be reserved and restricted to the citizens of that country. So do you think, I know it's a little bit off, but I'll bring it back to what we were saying. Do you think that's something that in this country that we should consider doing, or should not even ever broach again?
Well, you mentioned about the private sector part of it. The majority of the kids don't want to go into private sector. And that private sector can, like what you say, can can be around banking system.
Mm-hmm.
And you have a few kids that are willing to go into the banking system, but the majority don't. And we find with that it becomes, especially in Sterling, especially here on Kimbra, we don't have options. That is the thing. We're under a strain of jobs on this island, because the majority of the hiring is from the government side, and not the private sector, because we don't have much private sectors here, and a lot of the kids are not going to leave school and go out in the construction field, because they have to work among different nationalities that they feel uncomfortable with, and this is what I'm getting from other
Right.
children.
Right.
And they don't want to go into the bank. A lot of kids tell me they don't want to go into the banking system because they don't want to deal with other people's money and afraid to get in trouble because they're young. They made
Yeah.
one mistake and all the weight come down on them. So they're trying to say, okay, they want to reach out and try to get into maybe customs, immigration, these different departments like that. Which you got crawl before you walk. But
Yeah.
we need to get something sorted out
Right.
where.
I hear you, right? Can I interject? And I know we have a call and we have a break, but I just want to ask because increasingly there's more and more of these types of discussions. On one hand, for instance, there are many, and we're seeing it increasingly. Some would say it's a foreign, alien, unaccustomed, non-customary in that sense approach to be adopted. But should at some point not the child, and perhaps the child who is now age of majority, so 18 and above,
Well,
or approach be more independent?
The thing, Sterling, we gotta be careful when we use these kind of analogies about our children.
I'm with you.
Because I mean, some people will sit down and say, these children are spoiled and they want this and want that. Sterling, let me tell you something. I always remind my wife of this. Sterling, was me and you always this age?
And this is the thing, right? I know the break is over, but 1 second more, big in Misusa. Isn't it interesting that when it comes to the Caymanian child, you want to toss the child overboard and say sink or swim. But when a child of a foreign parent or who's new to the country, say first generation, that child is being nurtured and the path is being sort of facilitated by the parent who may reach out to another parent in an organization, say, my little Susie is looking for work. You got anything? Oh, that's a very engaged and involved parent. But for the Caymanian parent, oh, look at that, doing everything. So it's a kind of a fine line that sometimes we don't quite get right.
We fall in a bind of where we are heading, and do we decide to head the right path in order to get our children where they're supposed to be, or do we head on that path to just focus on where we are going and we walking with them behind us, forgetting about them? This is what happens into the entire system of the Cayman Islands. We always tend to forget the ones that coming behind us, that they are the ones that are pass when we sit down and can't go no further. Why are we focusing on ourselves? We have to focus on them. And that is constantly my cry, is to focus on the children first. And I see it here time after time. There is no focus on the children here.
Well, I appreciate that, and let's pick that up another time. We're gonna take the break, take the caller, take a guest for the next segment, and then go back into whatever. But you put some good things as usual on the table. Hey, thanks very much. All right.
Yeah, no problem, bro. Later.
Okay, later, bro. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. And as we head up to the headline news at 1, we have some guest scheduled for the half hour thereafter. But let's take our next call. Welcome, good afternoon.
Oh, you got throw me off the air?
Oh, no. I would never throw you. I may jump with you, for instance. I may jump first and say, come, the water is good, come on in. But I would never throw you off. Unless, of course, it was a burning building and you were being thrown to safety. How about that?
True. Agree with you.
Yeah, there to protect and provide.
Yep. True. How are you doing? You good?
Yes, Mom, I am, thank God. How are you?
Thankful another day.
Amen.
God is good.
Amen.
Above ground. Yeah. My little friend from the Brock, talking about the children and jobs and so forth. I'm quite sure you know that the schools, the high schools and the private schools and their high schools has job experience where kids go out, is hired in different departments, different businesses throughout the island while they're in school, and that is part of their schooling when they're just about to graduate and so forth. They'll get on with the school. I think the school that gets on with companies and see who can take one or two of the kids, and they just keep spreading them out in different departments. Like, say they want to go and work. Let's say I'm not going to say banking. Let's say an office, and they can start doing filing, get the feel of the office, and see what they're doing, and do the filing, and they go like 3 times per week out of the week that they're still in school, and some of them even end up getting a job after they graduate, and then they go on to community college, Walker's Road, or ICCI, to do some studies in the evening time, or even sometime in the morning time. And depending on what company to go with, they will give them that leeway to go and do their masters or whatever they're heading for up at the college. So I don't know if this is going to help, but there are job experience in the John Gray that I worked at for over 14 years, and I'm quite sure they got it up in Northside School, and I'm quite sure some of the private schools have, because I knew when I was doing therapy at HSA, they had some young children there from the private school who was interested in being a therapist,
right,
and so forth. So
right.
This summertime here now, I came across a couple of appointments. I've been to doctors, and they got these young people sitting in there, and they'll ask you, do you mind this young individual sitting in with your visit? I said, not at all.
Exactly.
They got to learn sometime.
Well, even the person who is qualified as, just for argument's sake, as a doctor or even a lawyer, still needs some level of training and experience, and will sit with a more senior doctor or lawyer to learn the ropes a little bit better. But to your point, and to the caller, the gentleman prior, a few things that we all know or have heard of and know to some extent: the central core government on an annual basis, and sometimes even not just during the summer internship program, but other holidays, bring students on as interns. We also know that the health services public advertise, they have an internship program as well, and some students get paid. But something that I was just reading as you were sharing, and I responded to the person and said, with the person's permission, I'm going to just phrase it a little bit different, because I gather that there's a more emotion being expressed than what is typed to me. Allegation being that oftentimes schools, public and private, the teachers in the schools may show preference to some students over others, right? I won't get into it, whether it's nationality or color or the grade or the age or the disposition of the child, none of those. And then at other times, the unwillingness or inability of parents, or the open discouragement from others to the parents to navigate, and help the child to navigate, potential employment, internships included, as well as scholarships and like. To the gentleman that called, we were not all, this age. So,
Uh-huh.
how many of us benefited from a mentor? How many of us had that parent serve that role to make a phone call, to help us open the door? We had to at some point paddle our own canoes, but
Uh-huh.
rarely did we have to sink or swim.
Yeah, Sterling.
Mm.
I don't think it's I don't think it's very much favoritism in the school when a child is picked to do something. I think that child is picked because they show so much interest and they're so eager to learn and they're so willing to try. We got a lot of bashful kids in school, throughout this whole
Yes,
island in the
yes.
private schools and the public schools.
Uh huh.
And some of that bashfulness comes from home as well, too, because they're not being exposed in a proper manner. And when a child goes to their parents and say, "Mommy, how do you do this?" or "Mommy, how you spell this?" And she may be on her phone talking to her friends or
Mm.
something. Say, "Oh, leave me alone. I'll come and show you later." I mean, you put that phone down and you answer that kid's question right then and there, because then another hour from then or 30 minutes, that kid lost all interest
Right. You
and then he
you
walks with that.
Yeah, you might be right, and it may be some of that lack of self confidence, the bashfulness as you shared. But what if it's deliberate and conscious discouragement? And I say this mindfully, I say this respectfully, but I say this from a perspective that I believe it to be the case, not just that may have happened this morning as I heard, but yesterday, last week, and last year. There are some of us, coaches, teachers, parents, adults, who consciously and at the very least sometimes very unfortunately say things to young children to discourage them, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I'm not talking about the allegations you used to hear where a teacher would say, "Oh, you'll never amount to anything," or a parent would repeat it. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about where the teacher might understand the influence and not nurture the child the way you would expect. I'm mindful of the news. Anything quickly, or we talk again?
You got guests coming on, or
For half an hour, and then
well,
I think it'll
I'll
be open
call.
after that. Okay?
I'll call back after that. Thank
Oh,
you so
you're
much.
so gracious. Thank you, Mom.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
All right, let's pause, and when we come back, join us. Stay tuned for Talk Today. Hey, good afternoon and welcome. And we got, 25 minutes or so? Excellent company again today to talk about. Some of you are going to try to say really fast. The Wheel Bin Pilot Project for Prospect. The director for the EH Department of Environmental, Mr. Richard Sims, his assistant director for solid waste, Mr. Michael Haworth. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Oh, man. I am alive, and for that I thank God. And gentlemen, I thank you for bringing along a fantastic advocate and effective communicator in the presence of your communications and marketing officer. Ms. Yolanda, good afternoon, and good to see you again, Mom.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Our gentlemen here, being fine gentlemen, instructed in the etiquette of chivalry and gentlemanliness, have voted and say, as knights they assemble to ensure that we provide sufficient space to be informed. So we got to take leadership from you, Mom.
Sure.
We've all nominated you to speak carefully.
Thanks. So we are here again. Thank you for having us. And we have great news to share with everybody, especially those who are living within the Prospect community. We are pre-launching our Wellbeing Pilot Project, which is something that the community has been asking for the longest while. So yes, we are ready to deliver, and because we want to do it in the right way, in the proper way. So that's why we started with a pilot. The idea of this pilot is that we are going to learn even from mistakes, if there is any. So we will be in a better position to expand it to the rest of the community.
And that makes sense, Mr. Sims. I mean, as director on your leadership, we always want to add value. We want our team to feel a sense of ownership, to take pride. Many of us grew up in communities where, in some form or fashion, we've always heard cleanliness is next to godliness, the importance of proper sanitation for our health and well-being. History is replete with examples where societies have suffered much illness because of unsanitary conditions. With great respect, we may see a natural disaster and afterwards sewage or different things. But if a community can be, as you've, under your leadership, help us to be proactive. Let's see if this thing works. What does it mean? What adjustments? It's exciting.
Yes, Dwayne. Thank you for having us again this afternoon. And I want to say good afternoon to my staff as well out there, the men and women of the Department of Environmental Health, who I'm really proud of, and this team that actually we put together. Mike is leading the team with the Wheel Bin project, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, man. Well, through you, sir, if I may, I have a great neighbour. He's a former employee, just recently retired after 4+ decades in your employ, an incredible gentleman, and I'm honoured to be in his neighbourhood, to have him as a neighbour, and his dedication and diligence. I mean, 40+ years in the job itself is an example to follow.
Absolutely.
But it just shows you the pride that they take, and I want all of us to do what our parents have set by example. No matter what you do it with a smile. Yeah. And he's done it to that day and still to this day.
Absolutely. And the thing is, you can always appreciate about the staff. They take real great pride in their work and making sure that they perform their work to the best of their abilities, and that is pleasing to the Cayman Islands community.
Exactly.
So for that we're grateful.
Yes, sir.
But this project, doing as Yolanda mentioned, is a pilot for now, and the vision is to extend it across the Cayman Islands at some point, right? We don't want to put a date on that.
And I was going to ask you, when is it coming to my neighborhood?
Yeah, but I'm grateful, like I said, to the team. Mike and the team has been doing a wonderful job. We have persons from different sections of the department who are actually making their inputs, from the engineering sections to the environmental health section, and people from the solid waste as well. Yeah. So we're doing some good research and hoping to get some good data from this, so that we can plan way forward.
Well, through you, Mr. Director, if I may ask, Mike, we'll talk about the project and what it would expect to achieve, but could we rewind and ask, how do we get to where we are? And not only why this project, but what it took to navigate to be able to put us to a place where we can roll out, no pun intended, a pilot project.
Yeah, well, I think it's from, how do we get where we are? It's probably from the when Mr. Sims came on board as director, I think, in terms of DEH. I know there was some problems in the past with collections and the management of residents' waste, you know, but we've come to a point now where collections are done on time every week. We've got nearly enough trucks. You know, we always need more equipment, more trucks. You know, we're always refreshing the fleet, but we're in a position now where we can look to improve on where we were before, rather than continuing the existing practice. You know, and really, you know, we talk about the staff, we talk about the community, but you know, in terms of improving us, you know, part of this is improving the workplace for our staff. You know, for some of our staff, the workplace is on the curbside. It's outside people's homes. It's picking up the garbage, and kind of the way that it sits at the moment, the legislation has a lot of freedom in it for people to put the garbage out in many different ways. The set outs, as we call them. It's really a handshake between the homeowner and the and us, the collector. That they put it out in the right way for us to pick it up. But with that freedom in the legislation means that we do have an infinite variety of different locations and shapes and sizes to collect from, and that's really where we want to get away from, where we've got a standard arrangement outside of every home that will help us in our collections and help our staff to do a better job.
So before I pivot back to Mr. Sims, I just listening, and in an earlier discussion you were thinking that concept of urban planning comes into play. You can more easily design something, and hopefully in this implementation it will make garbage collection, sewage treatment much easier. It's probably easier to build a new than to retrofit. But in the Cayman context, if we were just to mentally take a drive even to the newer neighborhood, sometimes accessibility to certain things can be a challenge. That standardization that we want isn't just all the bins going to be a nice beautiful blue with Cayman Islands stamped on them, you know, covered lids, this size, positioned there. But getting the trucks in, being able to get the trucks out, being able to get the bins from wherever they are to the curbside. We're not driving down some newly painted, you know, town in some Hollywood film. I mean, help us to appreciate that.
Yeah, we're not, but where this is done around the world, that's always the case anyway.
Right.
You know, there are very few towns built to order. You know, and you're always dealing with the old quarter, the historical part. I mean, I'm from the UK. Our roads are all over the place, you know, because we've got thousands of years. You know, the only straight ones are from the Romans. So we're always going to deal with that, and that was part of the reason why we chose this particular route within Prospect, is that we've got a variety of different street types, bending the road, different dwellings, different sized dwellings, different size of roads, different distances to the streets. Some may have a longer driveway than others. Some may be immediately beyond the curb. But you know, and like you say, new developments may look very pretty, but they may not be suitable for what we need.
Right.
They may build a very nice enclosure, but it's 30 feet away from the end of the driveway. So you imagine our collectors trying to manoeuvre those materials to the back of a truck. Sometimes they may be heavy, and it's difficult to do so.
Right.
If we, you know, part of the responsibility in this is that we, you know, in giving a homeowner a bin is seeking their cooperation to bring that bin to where we need it at the side of the road, and then that makes those collections much easier to manage and takes the strain. And then all you got to do, you wheel your empty bin back, and then you're done. So it does soak up some of those planning issues, some of those issues with access. It does help us out with that.
And one of the advantages we already have in Dwayne is that we have some of the most skilled drivers on this island. Because when you think about the streets, and remember, you know, we visit every single home in this island every week, and our trucks are maneuvering between these streets. Sometimes where vehicles are parked on both sides, the roads are very narrow, and these guys maneuver through them.
And they're reversing sometimes. They come kind of crab sideways sometimes. I've seen them.
They have the challenges, but they do maneuver through successfully. And so with you know, having mentioned the whole layout, we're already comfortable with the streets. Right. So. But with this project, I tell you, all we want to see is make sure that we have great improvements across the island in terms of waste management collection. And one of the key things is that Mike alluded to earlier is the safety of our staff.
Yes.
We want to make sure that we can prevent injuries as much as possible, because we have seen from time to time where they're challenged by going to a street and having to pick up heavy bikes and drag them to the truck, and so result in injuring themselves and unnecessary absenteeism and so on.
Okay.
So this is one way to help to correct all of that.
We're going to want to make ssure we give our listeners as much opportunity to get as much information. We're speaking to the director, the assistant director, and of course the communications and marketing officer. Ladies and gentlemen, we do have a caller. Could we see what questions may be asked? And sure. Let's take this call. Welcome. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dwayne.
Hey, how are you today, my friend?
Okay, Dwayne, and you?
Thank God, man. I am healthy. And if you don't mind me saying, man, I'm even handsome, right, Mr. Carvalho?
Sure.
See that? The gentleman agree. I'm great, thank God. It's a blessing, man.
I hear you. Yeah, Mr. Sims and who else?
So we have Mr. Richard Sims as director and his assistant director for solid waste, Mr. Michael Haworth.
Oh, Mr. Michael Haworth.
Yeah, and Miss Yolanda. I mean, I thought I had Lo siento, mi amiga.
It's okay.
So
You have a lady there too?
not just a lady, a gentle lady, a fantastic lady. She's their communications and marketing officer, Miss Yolanda Morales-Carvallho.
Okay. Yeah, well, Mr. Sims,
Yes, sir.
concerning recycling, in England they have different trucks that pick up different items for recycling, and then they have the different garbage cans that they put bottles and plastic in, cardboard and so forth. And if it's not separated properly, they don't collect it, and you can be fined if it's left unattended. Do you all have any plans on doing that?
Well, the thing is, as you know, our current recycling plan that we have in place now, we collect recyclables by means of the depots. Hopefully one day we will extend the recycling collections to the curbside, which means to your homes, and where you can actually do separations. But the current legislation will have to be changed so that we can cater for those things. Where in an event like you just mentioned, if a person put the wrong things in the wrong bin, then we can fine them. Then you have to create legislation for that, and the current legislation doesn't allow that. But of course, yes, that is something. This is part of the bigger plan. But first, we want to take this is baby steps. We have to make sure we crawl before we can walk and run and all these things. So we're starting with this component first, and then we can do the add-ons much later on. So yeah, that is part of the plan in the bigger scheme of things.
Okay, Mr. Sims, thank you. I have another question.
Okay, sir.
Does the government still own the dump?
Currently, we do.
Okay. You are partnering with someone?
Well, that's another discussion for another time.
Yeah, I think we've seen just recent press release from the government today, together from the opposition, and there is that political public play out.
Public-private partnership that we're seeking to like you said, there's we're still in negotiations, and that nothing has been finalized as yet, so we're near, right? So that's as much as I can say at this point in relation to that.
And respect for them, if it's okay with you, Mr. Sims, I think those things we'll hammer the politicians for and let the technocrats sort of appreciate the implementation once they've been given the instruction. If you have something else that you want to ask in relation to, or comment on, that's fine. But if it's okay with you, let the politicians take the heat for the political banter.
Yeah, they have the power to do it, Dwayne.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome, man. And maybe if I can sort of infer from the caller, there's a growing concern about environmental protection, garbage collection, sanitary conditions, or health and well-being from that perspective. And maybe this wheel bin, pilot project could be one step closer to understanding the importance of how we not just collect the garbage, but how we as the people that contribute to the garbage collection, how we play a role. Yeah. So Mr. Simmons, you have reference that this is for residential now.
Yes.
Is it that it's private homes we distinguish between apartments and condos?
Yeah.
Does it cover all of them or just some?
Yeah, no. This is strictly for residential.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to apartments and condominiums, those are considered commercial collections.
Okay.
So you're in a different category.
Okay.
So we're for right now we're focusing on the residential.
Okay. And I don't mean to belabor it, but we know some apartments / condos, despite the difference in terms of modern semantics, some have the big skips, and some have the receptacles.
Yeah, let me explain that.
Okay.
When you say, let me explain to you what the difference between commercial and residential, right?
Right.
So when you find some apartments with those smaller bins, that means there's a complex that has less than 10 apartments.
Okay.
So where you have to get into the bigger skips now is when you have 10 or more apartments, right? So if you have 9, then it's a residential collection.
Okay.
Right?
And they would have the bins if they choose.
They'll have the regular bins. That's one, right? But once you get into the commercial side of things, that's a different operation, which this particular project does not cater for.
And well, this what we're doing here will help hopefully fill a gap as well in terms of those smaller complexes with less than 10, which at the moment would have a residential collection but still do have a lot of bins, and it's still a lot of work getting those bins into the back of the truck. If we were able to place, in the future or as part of this pilot, we will find out a number of wheel bins that we can then mechanically lift into the back of the truck, will be saving our staff in terms of all that hard work, and also keeping that location clean and sanitary with a proper bin with a lid on top.
Right. Is that one more call? Hey, welcome. Good afternoon. Thanks for sharing.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Sterling.
How are you, my friend?
I am blessed and thankful.
There you are, man. That you are.
Upward and moving. And good afternoon to your panel.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes. I'm just asking a question. Are the garbage guys required to replace the lids on containers when they finish? When you take the stuff out?
Yeah.
Do they have to do that, or should they do that, or?
Yeah, I mean, we ask all our staff to replace the bins, and what arrangements are there as they find them.
I have an issue with that because they never ever up to this morning. But what happened now? I traveled over the weekend. I went away last week. But anyway, I put my stuff out from before I left, and when I came, that was on Sunday evening. My trash can lid was out in the road. Thank God nobody had run over it. And that's the case all the time. I've never ever I can't say never ever. I must be fair. There was a couple of times when the bin was turned upside down, and the lid was placed on top of it.
Correct.
But that's the exception rather than the rule. Most instances, the lid is thrown down, and I've lost a couple of garbage can lids like that because they're thrown down, the wind blow them over, and you get out in the road, cars run over it, or one instance, I don't know whatever happened to it, never did find it, it got blew away or something. But so I was just wondering, if because how much effort does it take to put a lid back on a garbage container?
Yeah, and this is something we preach all the time to the staff, to make sure that they leave the routes clean and tidy, and that's in general what they do, and whilst your where you live, your location is your place, so you will see that, but our staff, each individual person, will visit over kind of 300 locations a day, and sometimes we don't get it right. Sometimes we don't quite put it back because we've done this location and moved on to the next one. But what we hope to do with this project is kind of move away from that, and be able to provide each homeowner a standard bin, a DH bin, and that all you're doing is wheeling it back on your property, so that we don't lose things when we come and collect them. So we don't always get it right, and it's something that we talk constantly to the staff about.
Like I said, please, and not only that, I have another property. There's a rental property where I have a can with the lid, the flip top lid.
Yeah.
And what they do, they'll flip the lid open and take the stuff out, but they don't flip it back to close it. They leave it open. Yeah. You know? So it's like, I'm like, how much effort does it take to do that, you know? And the ones that don't, you know, the flip top one is not too bad because the lid is there. But the ones that you have to take the lid off and then they just throw it on the ground. In this case this morning was, you know, down in the middle of the road, or not quite in the middle of the road, but out in the road. And, you know, so many other times I find it throw down in my yard. If it rains and water settles in it, you know.
Well, these are things that we've been recently addressing with our staff, right? And you know, we're getting better. We're getting better at it. And with these, well, the type of bins that we're actually offering through this program is the flip top lid, as you would refer to it as, which should make it easier in terms of, you know, for sure you won't go down the road by itself. You know what I mean? So it have to be the whole bin. But we're making improvements. We've been trying to address those complaints that we've received in relation to, you know, the staff not putting the bins back and stuff like that. But in some areas that we've gotten some positive feedback recently that they're actually doing that. So we'll continue to press on to ensure that we provide good quality customer service to you and the rest of the public. So we'll certainly address that and we'll continue to address it with the team.
That being said, though, I must appreciate the service. You know, I know sometimes, you know, your days vary because of where I am. It's supposed to be Friday, but many times it happens on Saturday. But once it happens, that's the main thing. Yeah. But like I said, I know it's not a nice job, a easy job, so all that, you know.
Yes, sir.
Still appreciate the job that you do.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Thank you very much. And before we continue discussion and take the other callers, let's just pause and take this break, Mr. Sims. That's fine. Ms. Haworth and, of course, Mr. Yolanda. So stay tuned when we come back. Let's get it right. The Wheel Bin Pilot Project in Prospect. Come on, everybody, afterwards we're going to say that in 3. Stay tuned for Talk Today. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And as we're always grateful to be able to speak to any and all of our government agencies and departments. Today, as we talk about the Wheeled Bin Pilot Project. Oh, it sounds like a calypso. Wheeled Bin Pilot Project in Prospect. It is.
We've got a jingle, haven't we?
Yeah, man. I've never seen Susan laugh as much, and I didn't think it was ever possible to see her laugh even more. So thank you, Miss Susan. That brought chairs and tears to your eyes. Too bad. No, but this is just specifically focusing on that. I know Mr. Sims and his team have to return to other engagement. Thank you for taking a break. So we're talking about the Wheel Bin Pilot Project. It's going to be launched in Prospect next month for 6 months. He's joined by his Assistant Director for Solid Waste, Mr. Wegel Haworth, and their wonderful, communications and marketing officer, Ms. Yolanda Morales-Carvallho. We do have calls. I know you guys got to leave here in like 10 minutes. So
sure, we'll take them.
Let's take them. Hey, thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome.
Good afternoon to all of you.
And to you.
Good afternoon.
What was that tongue twister, Sterling? Let's hear that again, but don't do it calypso style. Just do it. How does it go?
But thank you for actually recognizing my attempt at, the Kaiso. Thank you for that.
It seems like they have to go in a hurry.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
but
ma'am.
Yeah, so I'm gathering that they're doing, it's called a wheeled in project?
Wheeled bin. I'll be like Mr. Sims said.
Wheeled bin.
All right, we can.
Okay.
It's a garbage can with wheels that make it easier to.
No. I understand that. But I'm getting to
I know, ma'am. I know.
Are these going to be standardized bins provided by the department and billed to the customer?
No, this will be provided totally by the department, free of cost to the customer. So there won't be any cost. All we are asking for is some good cooperation in the handling of them, and ensuring that you put them out when we're about to collect them. So there will be no cost to anyone besides the department.
Just to be clear, they're not going to be provided for everyone. This is just a pilot at this stage.
Yeah.
The pilot, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to start with the accolades. I have a lot of respect for garbage collectors. They rate very, very high on my agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Let them go on strike for a week and you'll see what happens. So
we have.
They're way up there. And I do my very best to ensure that when we put garbage out, it is safe. Like I never ever just throw broken stuff or sharp objects. I'll try to make sure they're in something because they're human beings that are dealing with these. And
Absolutely.
I've heard other people complain about some things, and I wondered if it might be due to the fact that many times when they're picking up, it's dark. I mean, I've had them before 3 o'clock in the morning picking up at my location. No, I respect them a lot and do whatever I can to try to make them feel appreciated. Now, getting to Mr. Mike. I met Mike when he first came here a few years back, and I remember saying to him, Mike, you come from England. You know how this thing is supposed to be done. Can you just get it going? So I'm really happy to hear that we're starting off with some standardized bins. And I hate to burst your bubble there, Mr. Sims. It cannot operate for free. Our garbage system went down the drain from the time they threw out fees and said we didn't have to pay. And I feel that it's because you don't have sufficient funds to do what has to be done. And I don't understand why you can't follow like the UK model, even though they might have a council that is going through. But okay, so people can't outright buy them. But $5 a month or $100 a year, I think, is what we used to pay before, because these services have to be funded. Everybody wants a first class, first world, whatever that is, service, and nobody wants to pay a tax, nobody wants to pay dues, and it doesn't work because I don't know how long you've been in your position, Mr. Sims, but before you came there, I think is when we were paying. And most people used to pay, despite the fact that it became a political football, and it was said that people weren't paying, so we might as well not charge. So if we adopt that attitude for everything, I mean, what, the government's just going to pay for everything, and where's government going to get the money from? You know, there are always individual cases, I guess, where people might be able to pay, and you have to look at those on a case by case, because you see, I'm hoping that we'll really end up getting like how it is in the UK, when we'll get the trucks that come, and the trucks themselves have the lift, have the forks, whatever you call it, to put those bins in, that the good garbage collectors don't really have to deal with it. So I'm not against paying for the fee. I want to see us get a first-class civil service.
Yes.
No, just a first-class
garbage collection.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Wait, thank you.
Well, I must say though that the decision not to charge was done long before me. This was back in 2010 since we stopped collecting.
I know that, but it's as political now as it was then. I know when it was done, I know who did it, and I know why it was done. But I'm saying the model isn't really working. That's why when your trucks are down, they stay down. When you need new trucks, you can't get new trucks because the money isn't there. And the service should be able to pay for itself. We all brag about, how much there is.
But in fairness, we have been, been supported recently in terms of getting trucks and stuff, because I have 5 trucks coming in, I think, by the end of this month. So we are being funded in fairness, and I understand. Sometimes yes, there are disputes as to whether we should charge, not to charge. But I leave that for
there are a lot of different charging models, and in the UK, not every home pays a fee. You have a local tax, and that local tax pays for your garbage collection. It pays for the police. It pays for lots of local services. Yeah. So if you own a home, you have to pay that tax, and it just comes out of that. So.
And one other thing I want to assure the caller there just now is that the mechanism that she referred to, that she was accustomed to in terms of collecting the bins, that is exactly the model that we're moving to. So we have installed the mechanical lifts on our trucks now, so that they will be able to deal with the garbage bins, the wheel bins. And in this instance, our staff really don't have to come into contact with the garbage itself. Right, so it's just a full wheel operation, and they can actually do the mechanical lifting. Right.
Well, I gather we have. Thank you so much, Mom, for that. And maybe if we can quickly take the next 2 calls to allow you to share. With respect, good afternoon, welcome.
How long will this pilot project take?
Yeah, we're anticipating around 6 months, but we'll learn as we go along. We're starting next month.
In the meantime, is it going to be enforced that all garbage containers be covered or extra containers be put out instead of this garbage just piling up on top of each other? It's not that the garbage trucks doesn't come. It's because people don't give themselves enough containers and they don't cover their containers. So is that going to be enforced?
It depends on the location, doesn't it?
Yeah, let you understand. You see, the thing is, the law currently, as it stands, right, only allows for any person to put out their garbage by way of a bag. You can just put a bag on the side. That's how the law is written as we speak, right? It only requires you to put your garbage bag out for the night before collection, right? I get a lot of this. Of course, I mean, if we were to amend the law and make changes, then we can enforce that in that respect to say, okay, this is the size bin you should have, and this is how you should keep it. But
respectfully, Mr. Sims, I mean, into the caller, we as people should have enough. What's the best word, Mr.? You're Englishman. You have good vocab.
I'm not sure about that.
I know the word.
It's a matter of being part of the change
that
we want.
Yes, ma'am.
So I guess these pilots give us that opportunity as well, because we are going to be working with the community, for the community.
All right. And back to you, Mom. We certainly hear your concerns. Any other thing you want to share with us, Mom?
No, but I think that I could have a force behind me saying that people should have enough love of country, enough initiative, not to just get the bag out, but to make sure it's secure, and the law can be amended overnight.
Yes,
it
absolutely.
Can be done, and whoever's responsible for it, whichever ministry, should go ahead and amend it right away.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
And
Thank you all for your service to us.
thank you, ma'am. A stellar service. And I think we'll take one final. No? Okay, great. Just allow our call. Thank you to that caller for respecting. I know it's the same as you and your team have to return, so let's take the remaining minutes to benefit your, sort of promotion and communication to our listeners.
Yeah, just want to encourage particularly the people in Prospect. And just I remember as I say Prospect, I remember what you said about the electoral boundaries.
Yes, sir.
But this route, I must say, does cover both Red Bay and Prospect. So if you're the electoral boundaries of Red Bay and Prospect, it does cover both, right?
And I think you did share that because of the route covering so much, it's easier to use as a pilot project.
Exactly, because Mike, as in his opening statement, made that draw reference to how diverse that particular route is. So we'll be able to get a lot of information as to how we can proceed. But just want to highlight some of the at least the benefits for everybody. It will reduce all of this manual lifting for our staff to prevent injuries and so on. And reduce, especially with the permanently affixed lids, vermin. Your chickens, your rats, and all these different things that go and pick the garbage apart. So that will help to reduce all of that sort of nuisance in the neighborhood. Improve efficiency in collection, improve public health, reduce littering. Because as a result of the chickens and all these different things that goes and pick into the garbage, it causes them to blow around the neighborhood, down the streets, and cause extra littering in the neighborhood. So we're going to be reducing those things with this project.
As we want to ask him, perhaps through you, we maybe ask Ms. Carvalho, but with this and with the lids, many of us try our best to, as the caller highlighted, to make our area as clean as possible, put our garbage out as best as possible. But there are people who will drive or walk by and add their garbage to it. Two things come to mind. Even though there's a fixed lid, some people may open and the lid doesn't close because it's overflowing, or some may use the lid as a nice cover to set things on top. Now, I think there needs to be a societal consciousness and an ethos that we understand the importance of cleanliness for our own safety and our health.
It's all about changing the mindset, right?
Yeah.
We want to let people take pride and joy in keeping their space clean. Because if everybody in the neighborhood start to think, okay, I just need to keep my space clean, you don't have to worry about what your neighbor doing and the other one down the street, because we're all of the same mindset. We want to take pride and joy in the neighborhood. We want to see, all of these rodents and things not running around in our neighborhoods, right? Because of the way we keep our garbage.
I don't know that this is something that hopefully we can revisit when you get closer to the rollout and thereafter, as you get rid of your meeting. Could we just ask a closing, perhaps, Ms. Carvalho, remind us of the area, and if it's in Prospect, in Red Bay, if you are a space that put out a bin, then that is still for you, but it's voluntary. So
yes, let me just remind community that this is you need to require first to be living within the pilot area, right? And you need to be registered. So we can be able to know that you are agreeing with our terms and conditions, which specify basically what are your responsibilities and what are ours. So to register, we have a registration form that is available already on the website, which is gov.ky/DH. And I have to say that we had already started receiving registrations. So people is welcoming the initiative, which is very actually positive for us and encouraging. But at the same time, we want to be able to build a communication channel with them directly, where we're going to hold their hands and give them tips, information directly related to the pilot. So this is a partnership. It's a service that we provide for the community, and we are going to be receiving also feedback from the same community to make the changes or adjustments that are required. So, Mike, you can tell us a little more about the route, please.
Yeah, well, it's in Prospect. I would say it's in the eastern side of Prospect. It's hard to say. There are many streets, but we're in the area of Mangrove Avenue, Mahogany Way, up into Patrick's Island. I'm trying to Bonneview Avenue, but also Prospect Point Road as well, which is cutting across the other side of the main road and the Chrissy Tomlinson roundabout. So there are lots of and every street in between those little bits and pieces. Prospect's a large area. We're not covering the whole area. What I would say is that if you're interested and you're unsure, visit the website gov.ky/DEH. You can give DH a call on 949-6696, or you can email us at DH customer service at gov.ky, and we will respond and advise accordingly.
All right. Well, we're happy between now and the rollout, whether in person or otherwise, to help facilitate the communication during the rollout 6-month period to help in any way. And we thank you for not only doing this, but for the participants taking up the offer. I mean, this can only help.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, trust that the rest of the afternoon is productive. The meeting is, not so long, and perhaps there's some chocolate being offered. I'm just saying. All right. Join us after the break. Stay tuned. Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And it's going to be open line until 2:30 when we end today's show. So we want you to call and share your thoughts. But again, thanks to Mr. Sims and his team. And as the callers all, commended the excellent and appreciative work of the Department of Environmental Health, in particular the refuse collection, as the garbage is put out and collected. We are grateful. We can, without any stretch of the imagination, imagine what it would look like if garbage was not collected. Whether you put it out or not, you got to have it accumulate in your garage, on your porch, inside your house, or in your backyard. It's not how we want to live. It's not how we should live. And as we look at a modern society, let's be appreciative of how we store our garbage, how we put it out for it to await collection, and how it's collected, and then how it's processed. There needs to be no political discussion as to the ins and wherefores and the outs and the ins and all the other stuff. But I'm glad that we as a community, as evidenced by the callers, how grateful we are, for that service. Now, for those in the Prospect and the Red Bay areas, as Mr. Sims and team reminded us, there is this pilot project starting next month, September, going on for 6 months. They are providing free to those who register these 96-gallon wheeled bins. You just put your garbage in, you take them where the trucks can come. It has its attached sort of grabbers. It'll pick it up, it'll put it in. Now, most of us probably have a 33-gallon garbage bin. Some may have a 55. This is a 96. I won't do the math to say that it's a little bit bigger, but for sure, it is. And then see how it goes, and eventually maybe it'll become standardized across the country as we make adjustments. Our phone lines are open, and we're going to take this next caller. Right, Miss Susan? Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you for calling.
Hello, is that me?
It is indeed. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
I want to ask you how you enjoyed that thing the other day, but good to hear from you.
Listen, I saw a letter on my Facebook from some visitors that came to Cayman and put on their diving stuff and went diving up at Spots Dock.
Right.
No, hasn't Spots Dock always had signs there that they don't invite people to go there?
Well, I think so.
Those signs went and nobody put them back.
I think so, but also, and someone did share that with me some weeks back. I think it seems like it was, but most of us who are from here, who've been in Atlanta at the time, know that as beautiful as that area is, it's an area that many of us were told to avoid.
We know that locally, but these were visitors, and the father and his 15-year-old son went into the water there diving. And the son had to rescue the father, and he ended up in hospital. Because there's a strong current there.
Very much so, yes.
And that's what the father got caught up in. So we know that as locals, but whichever department that is, they need to get some signs back up there, quite a few. Because, if that man had drowned, he could do whatever to our government.
Really? It is something that we should, and I appreciate that. But then we also know that some people will know there's an approaching storm, nor'wester, hurricane, and they see some rough seas, and they'll go out there and, surf beside run seas. So even common sense for some people, isn't so common.
But like I say, us locals know that.
Yeah.
But visitors don't. They're just looking at, it's pretty, and there's nobody there but them. So the 15-year-old boy had to go rescue his dad, and the dad ended up in hospital.
Yeah.
So I'm saying,
yes, ma'am.
It doesn't take a lot of effort to put back some signs there.
Well, if there are signs there, maybe as you
There
shared,
were
put
signs
more.
with donkeys years ago.
Right.
There were signs.
Yeah. If there aren't any, maybe put them back. But you are right, and thank God it's, no worse than what it is, and it's something worth highlighting. And thank you for doing that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. See you again soon. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Take one more call, Miss Susan, and then the chocolate. Yeah, let's do that. Quick time. Hey, welcome. Good afternoon.
Sterling, you better behave yourself.
You think so? Well, I don't
Yeah,
know,
man.
boy. That might be. Okay, I will. Since you said so.
You're a real old SBM.
Say again?
You're a real old SBM.
Oh boy, there's something I want to say, but yeah, of course, man. I mean, it's not like how lesbian.
Your district is developing like crazy, boy. I don't know what it's doing for, but I hope you don't leave the rest of us out. That's what I hope.
Mom,
You're not left out.
you know the interesting thing is, and I'm encouraged by the last call when she used the word locals. There are many people in this country. Some have been here 10 years or less. Some have been here for longer. However you describe them, if you listen to them as they highlight the changes that are taking place, nothing to do whether they approve of them, whether they think they're negative or positive, just the pace, we would be remiss not to pay attention to the potential concerns that could come as a result of the pace of physical development, the growth in population, and the like.
You, down at Sports Beach, there are a lot of signs down there telling you about the current, and it's the marine. What do you call it? Marine what?
Well, some sort of marine park, yeah, in some parts.
Yes, and you're not allowed to try to catch the turtles, and I think the stingray too up there. And but there are turtles up there, and there are signs there, and we was there some years ago, and these three young guys came down there, and they went into the water and catch themselves a turtle and wrap it up in their shirt and came out running like a bottle of HELL. And we had offered it in the car, and there were some visitors on the beach there, and they looked at us, and we looked at them, and they came to us then in the water, said, "Did you just stop at a turtle?" I said, "They sure did," But who knows what condition that gentleman was in, and he have ever been in water in his lifetime. And even though you may put on your snorkel gears and you may be a pool swimmer, doesn't necessarily mean you're a great swimmer when it comes to the salt water. I mean, you can get drowned anywhere, and you can get hurt in any type of water. But a lot of people do not understand the ocean. It is beautiful, it's tempting, and I have backed up on visitors came here and said they have never been in salt water in their life. I met a 70-year-old man. He said he never been in salt water in his life, and he hoped that he'd make it back before he go on to glory land. But there is a lot of signs down at the spots out there, and some people see those signs down there and just cross them and go and get the water and no pay the signs no mind. But they need to stop and read and look and listen. But typical people, like you teach your child, stop, look and listen. Look to the left and look to the right before you cross the street.
Well, then come on, look right, look left, look right again. Traffic over here, yeah. Yes, ma'am. Well, yeah, we're going to the news, though. You want to share with us some more? Or?
Going to the news, I got to hold on. I want something.
Okay, thank you, Ma. Thank you for that. And as we go into the news, one of our listeners shares that, and it's probably appropriate to do so, just like signage there, maybe signage for, don't leave your garbage in the beach, keep it clean. This one says that, does the same thing, put up a sign for people who come use the beach but don't pick up, because someone else has to do it. All right, let's pause and then come back for open line. Stay tuned. Hey, good afternoon. Welcome, Mike, and thanks for joining us as we have open line for the remainder. And thanks to the caller for being so gracious. Thank you for holding on during the news.
Yes, when I spoke to you earlier, one of my topics was this garbage bin thing, new garbage collector pick up down in Prospect, and then you had the people came on talk about it. And I was listening off and on, and I can't recall if I heard them say how many bins they would be giving each residence, is one or two. And they also state that they're only doing a certain part of Prospect.
Yeah. And two things as we gather may have shared sometimes with our connection. It's sometimes difficult to hear your contribution, but in relation to that, this is just something that they call a pilot project. They want to see how it's going to work, and they're going to start it next month. It's going to be for 6 months, and what it is voluntary. So they want the residents in that area, and it's just the residential customers. So as we understand what they shared, if you live in an apartment or condo with 9 or less units, consider residential. If you now have a garbage bin as opposed to what we call the skip, the big receptacle where the truck comes in and picks it up, you put it in a bin, then you're eligible. They want you to sign up. It's free to all the residents in that area, and it's only limited to that area for now. And there are certain sort of expectations, responsibilities that the people will want. It's a 96-gallon bin, which is probably much larger than some that we use now, if we use bins at all. It has an attached and a fixed lid, so that should help to keep the garbage can itself a little bit cleaner, the area a little bit neater. The truck will come once you take it and put it to the roadside, and use the grabbers, the forks, whatever, pick it up and toss it in, which should be safer for the garbage workers from the perspective of not having to lift such heavy bins, maybe in other ways, but also keep the space clean. So it's only for those people now. There's no cost to them. If they don't voluntarily sign up and be given a bin, their garbage will still be, collected.
So they're going to do a certain piece of Prospect, and then the other section there we pick up regular from the other garbage truck. So that means the lift that is on that truck then will not have an outside person hanging on the truck. Then it's just a driver.
Yeah. I deliberately and consciously didn't get into that just yet. Let's see how the take up is from the community. I think the expectation, given that there is no cost to purchase the bin, they'll give it to you, given that they want to be able to study it properly. It's a pilot project. Their hope and expectation, I would imagine, from the inference would be that the community would volunteer, all of the affected properties. They'll be given the requisite number of bins. Now, I can't say that, let's say for argument's sake, there's a household now that has 2 33-gallon bins, just as an argument. Will they be given 2 96-gallon bins? Or they will say, well, listen, you got 2 33, so 1 96 is bigger. I'm not going to get into that. I don't think that's, at this stage, necessary. But they may say, well, you're used to having 4 bins in this complex. Maybe it's 4 apartments or a 4-bedroom house, or whatever the case is. And you might say, well, those 4 bins, we better give you 10 of ours because you generate so much garbage. I'm not even going to say that either. The idea, though, is to make the collection much more efficient, effective, safer, leave the area cleaner, and without any, more cost or inconvenience to the homeowners or to the residents.
Yeah. So I'll come off of it, but I just want to say this. So Sterling, I heard you mention that the trucks is even as they are now, even with cars on both sides of the road. So now if they're going to go and do this kind of work, this kind of lifting of garbage with list there. Does this mean that the road has to be cleared now when the stuff is coming to regard these garbage bins? Because I don't expect you to even answer that, but that is something to look into because even just having a regular garbage in your bin, and you might have a bin to the road.
Right.
Sometimes there's a car park up. You can't get the garbage up to the truck.
Right. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm not going to try to answer for anybody as you shared, but I appreciate it. And Mr. Sims did highlight yesterday when he joined us on For the Record that, sometimes in some areas when you go, there may be a boat, a car, there might be some other impediment. It might be there all the time. It might be just that, thing then for that limited period, but it does affect the ability for the garbage truck to maneuver, for the workers to go and retrieve the garbage bags and or the cans with the bags to properly put them into the garbage truck. And by you sharing that, maybe we, as the residents in the area, maybe we're not even as considerate and conscious of the thing that we've done, realizing how it may impact. As an example, just as an example, let's say you live in an apartment complex. Maybe it's a duplex, maybe it's a house, but you have visitors overnight, or maybe you're doing something to your driveway or whatever the case. And for that night, without thinking about it, garbage collection is the next day, but you park your car, your boat, maybe you got some construction material delivered. It's not going to be there long, but for that limited time, when the truck comes to collect your garbage on the appointed day, it can't get to it because your stuff is in the way. That one collection, because it's now once a week, could mean that your garbage is piled up now to the next week.
Yeah, they need to consider too. I'm doing garbage twice a week again down the line because
right.
Garbage should be collected at one time. And I heard a man say that the law say a plastic bag.
Yeah.
There's some of the laws that need to be changed.
Can I respectfully say to you, I'm no technician. I know sometimes we hear you better than sometimes you guys may hear me. I don't know if it's a speakerphone or otherwise, but just then I did hear you, but I was listening intently. I would probably say that if I was driving my car or listening on the radio, it might not have been as clear. So if it's a speaker, phone, but I leave that to you so that we hear what you're sharing.
It's not a speaker. I'm not on a speaker.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. No.
I know my time is up. But, I don't want to talk about the prison. But,
no, go right ahead. Go right ahead. You got a couple minutes. If you want to talk about the prison, go right ahead.
Sterling, I heard that from time to time that the government is spending like, what is it, 7,000 or 70,000 per year on one prisoner.
Yeah, we've heard over the years, and now I won't say this with any sense of authority or for it to be definitive, but we understand that it is approaching 70,000 CI dollars per incarcerated individual. Now, how that is distributed and whether we can get a definitive breakdown or the like, that may not be important to some, it may be absolutely crucial to others, but there is certainly a significant financial cost to the government in terms of, prisons.
Yeah, it is. And Sterling, the government needs to look into that and who they have in prison. And if they're just serving X amount of time and they're are not from here, they on a work permit, or even if they got their status or whatever they want to call themselves as a Caymanian, if they got themselves in trouble while they're here, I'm not talking about a Caymanian that born here, okay? So what I'm saying is the government needs to look into that prison and see where they can break down, spending that kind of money on yearly on like, I don't know if it's one person or two persons for $70,000 per year, because they're getting medical, they're getting vision, and they're getting dental, and whatever else that they need in India. They're getting meals and they're getting everything. They're the only thing that they just don't come out and go back in at the end of the day. They're there, sleeping there, they're living there, and they're serving their time. But where are they going after they serve their time? I'm not talking about Caymanian. I am talking about whoever we got there on a work permit or status holder or someone who came in on a flight or a boat that got in trouble here and we got them in prison for 3 years, 5 years. Government need to look into that because when their time is up, are they going to be deported or are they going to try to come back into our society and mix and mingle and try to get a job?
Right.
I think government needs to look into that. And instead of putting $70,000, let's say $70,000. I don't have no proof. Let's say $70,000 per year. If government knows they're spending $70,000 per year on one individual, they're only going to be in prison, let's say for 5 years. Why not come out now and break that down and say, you know what? This is costing the government so much money. This is costing the taxpayers so much money. Let's deport that individual back to their country regardless if their time is up or not.
Right.
Because one day our government got to become broke and people that suffer.
Something to consider. I mean, and I'll share this with you. And it's important that we have discussions about, prisons and effectiveness and the like. But just to your point, the understanding is that for an individual to be deported after a prison sentence has to come as a result of the order from the court. So you're sentenced to X time in prison, ordered deportation upon release, deportation, right? We know that the deputy governor some years back on the show had shared that his office was inundated, I believe was the word he used, constantly from individuals who were declared persona non grata. So here is a person who has been, if you let me use the colloquial expression, kicked off the island because of something, and has been constantly petitioning, writing letters, calling the office, asking to be permitted to return to the country when that person has been officially declared, persona non grata. Some would say, well, maybe the person has some familial ties here. I think an important question is, should that person be readmitted? And should, those ties be sufficient to overturn any such order under the guise of, human rights or anything else? So you raise a valid point that requires perhaps further discussion. Okay. But thanks very much, Mom. All right.
I'll let you go. Thank you.
You're
Bye.
most welcome. All right, let's take the final break, and then when we come back, I can ask Susan to join me in a song. She said, yay. No, she did. Stay tuned for Talk Today. Hey, good afternoon, welcome back, and thanks for sharing with us. And it is open line, so you can call us on the WhatsApp number 925-3261. You can use the flow toll-free call if that's accessible to you. 1-800-534-8255. Of course, 949-8037. Tomorrow morning, God's willing, joining me, I get a chance to be again sitting in OC's chair. For the record, thank you for giving me such a warm welcome. I almost feel like, it's my show. And I know that I can say on behalf of Mr. OC, we are honored to be able to sit and encourage the discussion, to welcome our callers. And we wanted to facilitate it because we invite our public, participation. So tomorrow, Mr. Loxton Banks is going to join us. Hopefully, Dr. Steve McPhee will also sit in. We're going to be talking about, the day the world changed. Yeah, tomorrow, the 9th of August, in 1945, will mark the 88th anniversary, the day that the first atomic bomb was used. Now, you may have watched a documentary, you may have heard about it. Some of us may have had a parent or grandparent who was around at the time, still is, and who can tell us about what transpired thereafter. It was dropped in, Japan. It was supposed to, bring an end to, World War II. And history tells us that 55 million lives were lost during World War II. And the use of a nuclear bomb. And then one subsequent to that. And now the age that we are in, that threat is probably ever more present, even now that we know the dangers. So from Hiroshima to, today, I think there is much to be grateful for. And I'll say this not as a political commentary. If it resonates with you as such, talk to me so that I can be conscious of it and more considerate in my commentary. But if you have a democracy, it is not for the elected people alone, or for those that they have appointed, or those that have funded the elected. It is for the entire country, in particular and primarily its citizens who vote, and then those who have opted to be there and may choose to make it home, for us to participate in what is happening in the country, however you want to term it, but to pay our taxes, to hold a government accountable and responsible for its actions, to demand the things that we somehow have allowed to be said so often that we no longer hear. You remember once not long ago, especially during the political campaigning, words like openness and accountability and transparency. Well, they won't transpire unless we demand it. And if the consciousness of the society is one that inculcates an ethos of integrity, of value for money in the government's expenditure, and a deliberateness about the way the country approaches the agenda setting, so that as much as possible, whatever the government undertakes benefits not just that politically elected entity that is at the helm for the day, but for future generations. You may say government is looking at building a road, expanding a road, or somehow some other infrastructure project. Irrespective of the cost, or how long the project will last, or how long the debt that is incurred to pay for that project, whether it's from recurrent expenditure or whether it's a long-term bond issue, however that is structured, those things will affect a society then and potentially for a very long time. It may seem, as some say, obvious, but if a government spends money on a road and it turns out that had it with a little more thought and consideration and perhaps planning, and instead of doing it then, it did it a week later or a year later, it not only would have been more cost effective, but they might have got better value for money. one would not expect that the government or one thereafter come and then excavate that road and move it over. There are some things that you can undo. On ringing the bell, rewinding the hands of time, to the best of my knowledge, are not, two of them. But by the same token, if something needs to be done now, but we are so caught up in committee, what they say, paralysis by analysis, we're so apt to get it right that we want to please everybody, we want consensus, that no decision is taken. That's not effective either. Therein lies that fine balance where you make a decision, but you do it after as much consideration and analysis as possible. And the more of the people who, as citizens, can weigh in. I'll give us an example. The Honorable Speaker, who also serves as the MP for West Bay Central, will be announcing a public meeting next week, Wednesday. She'll come on, she'll tell us more about it in her capacity as the MP for that area. The expectation is that, the good folks from hazard management will come along and the community will come out and be informed and understand the vulnerabilities and preparation for natural disasters, including hurricanes. But it is for the community to come out. Now, others can come along and participate and benefit, but these are, things that, when facilitated, have to be taken up by the populace for it to really be meaningful and beneficial. So let's take our final call. Good afternoon and welcome. Thanks for calling.
What's up, Captain?
Hey, General. How are you today, my friend?
I'm, as usual, between fine and excellent.
My friend, that's a good place to be, man. I hope to join you there sometime.
Yeah, sometime you gotta make yourself happy, I just want to say that from what the information I was getting, that the government is giving the seamen, or known in most countries as merchant marines, they're giving them some raise on their monthly distribution or whatever they're getting there. So that is well needed, and I think sure it's a small token, but it's a move in the right direction. As you was talking just a minute ago about the World War II, certainly so. And in our island, the seamen should be no less respected for what they have done, laying the foundation of all that you see happening in the Cayman Islands. And the most important thing that was laid as the foundation was the repetition of the Caymanians who went abroad with their impeccable character, could go any place in the world and start their passport and say, have a good day, once you're from the Cayman Islands. So, I just want to say that that's a move in the right direction. So, I just hope they keep it up, and congratulations to them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that. And together, we'll start to appreciate our people as we understand the importance, of sharing and caring. Thank you very much, sir. Have a wonderful afternoon. All right. Well, thank you all for being with us. Someone just sent a message, and I want to say thanks to the person, and I'm almost inclined not to share it, but there's a leading in my spirit to do so, in the hopes and expectation that it would encourage, inspire the rest of us. Even though, as I read it over twice, and this will be the third time, as I do it publicly, it's very touching, and it's not for me to share this so that you will look at me in any way other than, just being inspired by this and maybe through that encourage you. This person says, well, I wish you were on the station 6 days per week. God's blessings to you always. Oh, how I wish other people could take even a little page from you. You're kind, caring, I think loving, forgiving, and a whole lot more. Thanks for being the wonderful person God made you. I don't know about you, but sometimes we don't say thanks. when people say good things about us. And I share that not to say publicly thank you, but recognizing that many possess those same attributes and many do great things, and we don't often acknowledge them until, maybe it's too late. But just like that person was inclined to share, I want to say thanks publicly and ask us to be the example. Now, I don't believe that I'm any better than the next person. I just believe that I have the capacity and the potential to each day improve, to be better today than I was yesterday. But recognizing the importance of celebrating each day, being gracious and grateful, and to know that it isn't so much the fall or the failure, it's the unwillingness to get up and try again. Mama says, not every disappointment is a misfortune. And we have to always try to appreciate the moment and always try to improve our contributions. One day might share publicly, the trials and tribulations and the challenges. But I will say this, I would always want to have that smile in my heart so it becomes evident in my eyes. And there is a very good friend who sometimes has, done more than is acknowledged. And if we have that friend, say thanks. If we are that friend, thank you. And appreciate that no matter what you do, it will affect the life of somebody else. Is it positive? Well, only you'll know. Pay attention. So tomorrow, join Mr. Loxley and hopefully Dr. Steve as they come on with me as we sit in for Mr. OC. Will be a part of the discussion, and we're going to be talking about things to appreciate why we are where we are and why it's important to be, very active participants in our democracy. Please enjoy your afternoon and go with a smile. Vaya con Dios, mi amigos. Until tomorrow. Have a wonderful afternoon, and to Miss Susan, thank you so much for all you do. As she plays their music, I'm going to listen intently, as the songs are always inspiring. Until tomorrow.